Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers Inspiration. I'm your host, Harriet Cole, honored to share this time with you. Thank you to all of you who are joining now for this moment when we can connect live, and also for those of you who will be joining on demand. I love that technology makes it possible for us to connect to each other when it's convenient. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. But the connection is what is so important. I'm on the board of a charity that's part of my meditation community, and we often talk about how we are, the work that we're doing, how kind of walking arm in arm with other people is helpful both for them and for us. And I was thinking about this, about that posture of service this weekend. And, when you approach whatever task is before you from an attitude of service, it can change your, it could change your energy. It could change the way that you interact with others. It can make you much more compassionate and patient when you are coming into a situation understanding that your role is to serve the moment and to serve those who are around you. The other part of that, and this is something that I've just learned from being practicing meditation for many, many years and being part of a community that is paying attention to how we treat each other. And it's about human dynamics. Like, no matter what you do, how you treat people, how you engage people is really what matters. Of course, if you have work to do, you need to get the work done. If there's a task and there's a deadline and you have a responsibility, yes, you need to fulfill that responsibility, figure out how you can be accountable for whatever it is that is on your list. But on a deeper level, that accountability has to do with how you engage others, how you treat people, how you think about people, what you do when you don't do the best job, what you do when you hurt somebody's feelings. And that could seem soft, like soft skills. Why are you talking about that? Especially if you think in a work environment when there's a laundry list of things that have to be done and have to be done now. Sometimes people collapse uh, their framework of how they need to get things done because, well, this has to be done in this amount of time. So forget how we normally do it. I just have to go from point A to point Z really fast, even if I have to mow you down in the process. Wonder if you've ever had that experience, meaning you did it yourself. This right now, I'm talking about things that we do, how we behave in relation to other people. And I think that when people feel constricted, when people feel like there is not enough of whatever it is that they feel that they want or need, uh, then a lot of challenges ensue. I interviewed a man recently, Dr. Jonathan Lasseter, who has written a book about kind of looking at how we interact with each other, and sometimes the lens through which we see ourselves and other people can be distorted. And he talked about the us versus them framework that many people have, kill or be killed, sort of the plight of the individual, that I have to get mine regardless of what happens to you. And we know that that is a very popular way of, very common, maybe more than popular, very common way of um, interacting with others. I have to get mine. And if that means you get pushed off on the side, well, so be it. There's room for me, there may not be room for you. Well, we are living in times right now where I think a lot of people feel that sense of, "I have to get mine because there isn't enough." I know so many people who are out of work, all kinds of people, who are highly educated, people who are doing, labor jobs, everything in between, uh, from minimum wage workers to, 6 plus uh, figures workers who have nothing right now. And what happens if you don't have food? What happens if there's a chance that you're going to lose your home? What happens if there's fear because you don't think that you're going to have enough? Or it may not be something that's that intense, but just the uncertainty of tomorrow. What is to come? What what is next for my life? And how do the people surrounding me either support or not the goals that I have? These are the kinds of things I've been listening to people talk about a lot in the past few weeks. I've been observing a lot of constriction, a lot of worry. And I, as I have observed that, I've also noticed that people can be very brittle. And so they often say things I should say when feeling contracted, when feeling like there isn't enough, when feeling any sense of lack, people often lash out at others and often at the people who are closest to them, who they care about the most, in part because they're there. And often double down on whatever it is that is going on, even if they are wrong. And I've seen it so much recently that I thought it could be worth it for us to explore. What happens if you take a step back and look at how you are engaging other people? And especially what happens when, for whatever reason, you are wrong? What happens if you have said something, done something, thought something that was unkind, that was unhelpful, that maybe was absolutely wrong, like you made a mistake, but because you are indignant about whatever it is, you double down and say that whatever it is that's happened, you decide that you are going to dig your heels in even more. And I ask you, do any of you find yourselves in this situation? I'm curious. Have you been in a situation where you've doubled down when you knew you were wrong? And it isn't always a big thing. I'll go through what some of the things are that I've been paying attention to. Sometimes people say something that actually is untrue. They claim something about someone else. They lash out at another. They are dismissive in their tone when the moment didn't call for that. But they were just going through something, and here you are. So you get the other end of my intense emotion. And what happens then? If you've been in a situation like that where you said something, you were short with someone, just not kind, did you apologize? Did you acknowledge, I'm sorry, I'm having a bad day. I did not mean to take it out on you. How many times do you say that? If you check in with yourself, if you hold yourself accountable for how you behave, what you say, and what you do, how many times do you say, I'm sorry, and mean it? I want to tell you something. I searched and looking for quotes today. I searched for quotes about apologizing because I think that many people don't ever apologize for their behavior, whatever it might be. A lot of people never say, I'm sorry. And some people who say it don't necessarily mean it. So ask yourself, where do you fit into that category? Do you say, I'm sorry when you did something wrong? If you didn't meet a deadline, do you say, I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to complete that? Do you say, I'm sorry when you speak to someone in a way that is unkind or you can tell hurt their feelings, even if what you said was justifiable? Do you say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings? How often do you do that? I'm very curious to know how many of you think that you are good at acknowledging when you've done something wrong and that you actually speak up and say it. If anybody's brave enough to put a note in the chat box, let me know if you think you do it or if you think you don't. Like, what percentage of the time do you think you own your mistakes? Especially if your mistake was saying or doing something that hurt someone else, whether it was intentional or not. What percentage of time do you think you are guilty of not doing anything to fix it when you make a mistake, when you hurt somebody's feelings, when you were wrong? And how often do you double down when you've been wrong, but you really don't appreciate being called out on it? I recently witnessed an interaction with two people whom I know well, and I don't even know who was right or wrong. I know that in part of the interaction was calling someone out for behavior that was wrong. I'm gonna guess, going back to the 4 gateways of speech, which we talked about last week, was it timely, this call out? Maybe not. And we talked about that a little bit last week. Sometimes it may never feel timely. And so do you just hold on to it forever? Or when do you speak up even if you can't really find the exact right moment? But what happened when this person called this other person out on a behavior that was unkind? It opened up, it was like a pot of boiling water, and the water just spewed out the venom, the negativity, the rejection of any responsibility for what had happened. It was just kind of like, how dare you say that this happened because it's untrue? And in reality, I was a witness. It had happened. The inappropriate behavior had happened. And the reaction to it was much more dramatic than the moment called for. But I think what happens when people are on edge, when people are feeling pressed, any little thing can be that spark. Any little thing can make the water boil over. And I think we're in a situation like that now, where tensions are extremely high and volatile. I remember when I wrote my book, How to Be, this is many years ago, there was a war going on. This was in the it came out in 1999, and there was a lot going on in the Middle East, and people were afraid because uh, we had, many people had members of their family in the military who were going over for Desert Storm, and I remember thinking about this and thinking, well, what are we doing at home? What are the little wars that we create in our lives that 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 stir up so much intensity that they can have an impact on all of the people around us? What about those things? We may not be able to uh, impact a war with weapons overseas. We may not even be thinking about it other than if we have family members who might be in peril. But what about our own things that we do, things that we put into our own atmosphere that are unhealthy? What about that? Examples when you are in a relationship and you're mad at your partner and you talk bad about the person to whoever will listen. And then you've made up, you're out somewhere and you see your friends and your friends are giving your partner ice and, being very, very cold when you're being happy. Well, they didn't catch up. They didn't get the memo that you're not mad anymore. And so you've created this army of negative energy of people who are hating on your partner when what you want in that moment is support. You created that. You created that. That was sparking something that is very hard to put out, to put that flame out. If you my so and so did this, and this, you talk about them like a dog, and then what? And so, in the context of what we're talking about today, I would call that a mistake when you have used a lot of your energy to badmouth someone who's part of your life, a partner, a boss, a coworker, a friend, a child, a sibling, a neighbor. And then what? That's when you need to be able to say, "I'm sorry." You say, "I'm sorry" to the person whose name you have maligned. You say, "I'm sorry" to the people who you fed this information and say, "Look, I'm being accountable for myself. My attitude has changed. I'm sorry that I put you through whatever it is in order to be there to support me. I'm working to be accountable for myself, and I'm going to be more responsible moving forward so I don't build that army of negativity, this groundswell that can be very, very difficult to end. Because once you spark something, think about a fire. You spark a flame, it is very hard to put a fire out. So when you think before you act, before you speak, what are the potential repercussions of what is about to come out of my mouth? And if it's already happened and I realize, I didn't handle that so well, what do I do? So I want to ask you, what do you do? What do you do when you feel like you've you've not handled yourself in the best possible way? Do you own it? Starting with yourself, do you own it? Do you, yeah, I did that. Mm, that wasn't my best self. I did that. I said that. I wrote that. I thought that. I could do better. Do you ever sit back long enough to evaluate your own behavior and actions and go, I could do this better. I could do this differently. And I should. And I can. I can pause. I can adopt a different kind of attitude about this situation that I'm in right now. And I can own my mistakes and make sure that others who may have been part of that understand that I'm owning them, that I'm taking accountability for how I engage them and how I handle myself. So let's look at the quote that I found. And let me tell you, it was not easy. There are a lot of funny quotes about apologies. A lot of people saying, don't apologize. I don't believe that one. But I love this one. The best apology is changed behavior. From Katharina Mara. It's from The Broken Vows. The best apology is changed behavior. Think about that. Because a lot of times, and I'm telling you, when I was looking for quotes, I I I get up early in the morning on Mondays, but this one to try to find a quote, I started looking for this quote yesterday because I knew it felt like addressing this notion of apologizing and owning your mistakes was something that I felt very strongly should be addressed today. and I wanted to find the best possible quote, and it was not easy to find because there are many, many, many quotes saying, "Forget about apologizing. Why are you even thinking about that?" They're jokey kind of quotes about apologies. And then, of course, if you say you're sorry, but you keep doing the same thing, then it's hollow. And there were a lot of quotes that point to that. But this one, the best apology is changed behavior. Yes, yes. And how difficult is it to change your behavior? Think about that. We have our patterns, we have our ways of being in the world, we have the things that we like to do. Most people are creatures of habit. You wake up in a particular way, you do certain things, rituals in the morning, you have the things you do as you go along your day. You have your patterns, you have your ways of dealing with stress, you have your ways of being with loved ones. You have ways. You have your ways that, people say, "Oh, yeah, that's what she's like. That's what he's like." Okay, what does that mean? And if there is something that is true about you that isn't good, that isn't healthy, do you just say, "Well, take it or leave it"? Someone said that to me recently. "This is how I am. Take it or leave it." Think about that. When this was said to me, it was it, kind of in the throes of an argument, a disagreement, let's just say, where I did not appreciate how this person was responding to what I thought was a fair uh, inquiry. And well, this is how I am, so take it or leave it. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? What do you do with it when people say, "I'm not going to change"? I got one of those too not too long ago. I don't want to change. I'm not going to change. Really? Okay, so what do you do if you're on the other side of that? If you are in whatever kind of engagement you're in and something happens and you don't like it and you stand up for yourself and say, "I didn't like that. I didn't like when you talked to me like that. I didn't like when you treated me like that. I didn't like whatever it might be. This is how that behavior made me feel." And a person on the other side of it basically says, "So what? Too bad. Take it or leave it. I'm not changing." What do you do with that? Has that ever happened to you? I'm gonna guess probably because it happens. People dig in. People you push people up against the wall, you hold them accountable for something that they may have said or done. A lot of times people do not like that. They don't appreciate that you did it, and they want to deflect it. Mm-mm. Nope. I do not accept that you said that. I How dare you? They get indignant. How dare you say that about me? That's not true about me. I didn't say that. I didn't do that. There's something called gaslighting, right? When a person did say or do something, but then they pretend like they didn't. And sometimes people can pretend so well that they believe themselves when they say, "I didn't do that. I don't know what you're talking about." You can say something over and over and over again inside of your head until you believe it's true, even if it's not true. But what do you do if you're on the other side of someone not owning their mistakes, of someone not being accountable for their behavior, someone not accepting that they hurt you, that they didn't fulfill a responsibility, that they were selfish, whatever it might be? How do you respond if what you get when you attempt to hold that person accountable in the moment, owning where you are in the situation and holding that person accountable, what what's your next step if they're like, "Psh, that's on you. I'm not changing." Take it or leave it. So sometimes that's when you have to say, "Okay, bye." Like, "Bye-bye, Felicia. I'm leaving it. I'm not gonna stay and try to convince you to treat me with respect. I'm not gonna stay and try to convince you to, um, be different from who you have said you are." Interesting, right? Can you stand up for yourself and do that? Because in this concept of owning your mistakes, if you are on the other side of something where you don't feel like you've been treated right, how are you treating yourself? How are you treating yourself? And so I'm gonna ask my assistant, Natalie, if you remember Dr. Lassiter's quote, can you write it in the chat box? Because I spoke to Dr. Lassiter the other day, and he had a great question, which I just can't remember right now, um, about our behavior. When people allow others to treat them poorly, why do they do it? Why do they do that? And Natalie may remember. If she remembers, I'm sure she'll write it in the chat box for me. But meanwhile, this is something that's pretty deep to think about. So yes, here it is. Here's what Dr. Lassiter said. What is it about sacrificing yourself that makes you feel worthy? Okay, everybody, step back for 1 second. Close your eyes. Hear this. Hear this. What is it about sacrificing yourself that makes you feel worthy? That was such a profound question, I thought. Dr. Jonathan Lester, was his question. I was telling him about some people who write to me for my column, and they were asking about several different people asked this question about, so and so did this to me, and should I say anything? Or, it might upset things if I hold them accountable for this, and what should I do? And Dr. Lester is like, what is it about sacrificing yourself that makes you feel worthy? I thought this was a powerful contemplation that sometimes this is what people do. Sometimes people just can feel sorry for themselves, can take on this sort of almost beggy kind of behavior. Well, if only you would believe me. I'm not trying to be a particular way, but I wish you wouldn't talk to me like that. That the voice changes just like I did. Dr. Lash is like, mm-mm, stop it. Stop it. Stand in your power. Fully claim all that you are. Do not let other people take advantage of you. You don't have to conquer them. Dr. Lester is one who says the African mindset is inclusive, it's community, it's empowering, it's family, it's locking arms. But it doesn't mean that you let people take advantage of you. It doesn't mean that somebody gets to gaslight you. It can mean that you walk away. It can mean that you've had enough and you say, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to allow this behavior to be part of my world. So I may have to say bye. I can't do that now. Right? Um, you just never know. You never know how others are going to be, but what you can control is how you are. It looks like I'm frozen. Am I frozen, family? I think I was frozen for a moment. I apologize for that technology. We cannot control other people, but we can control ourselves. It's not easy to control ourselves, but we can. And today's message, own your mistakes. If you've done something that is unkind, change your behavior. Apologize. Say you are sorry if you hurt someone. We are tender beings who need that love and support. If you made a mistake, say something. You know? Oh, my friend Cheryl Riley, my sister. Thank you all for joining today. And I hope that you're listening to this, that you hear it. Be kind to yourself and to others. Own your mistakes. Do better next time. Learn so that you're not doing the same thing over and over again. And Dr. Jonathan Lester's question, let it sit with you. What is it about sacrificing yourself that makes you feel worthy? And whatever it is, exorcise that out of your being. It is unhealthy. It's much healthier to align with the goodness within, with your connection to the divine, to be still so you can hear and see the truth within and notice it in others and speak to that. But don't fall into that unhealthy pattern of twisting something into feeling good if it is really hurting you. That is not healthy. So I want to say to all of you, I hope that you will sit with this, own your mistakes, apologize when you've hurt someone, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Be quiet until you find that sweet power within. So when you speak, it can be heard and it can resonate. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's live with this question, this thought. What does it mean when you own your mistakes and you live from that space of peace? Until next time, have a great day and make it count. Namaste.